Year 536 was the worst year to be alive. What happened? You know how people nowadays whine about having the worst year ever just because their favorite character died in a TV show or their latte wasn't foamy enough? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because historians and scientists have crowned a champion that makes your bad hair day look like a trip to Disneyland, the magnificent disaster that was the year 536. While other years have certainly tried their best to be absolutely terrible, and kudos for the effort, no single year has managed to mess things up so spectacularly that people felt the aftershocks for decades. Today, we're diving into why 536 deserves the golden trophy for being the most miserable time to have a pulse. Picture this. Byzantine historian Procopius is hanging out in Sicily with his boss Belisarius, one of the Byzantine Empire's fanciest generals. When he notices something fishy about the sky, he scribbles down that the sun was basically having an existential crisis, giving light without actually being bright. More like a moody teenager than a celestial body. It was dark all the time. Talk about seasonal depression on steroids. Procopius wasn't the only one noticing the sun's dramatic mood swing. Michael the Syrian, another Byzantine scribe with excellent observation skills, later wrote that this solar sulking lasted for a whopping 18 months. The sun would peek out for maybe 4 hours a day, but even then it was more like a weak flashlight than the blazing ball of fire we know and love. Everyone was convinced the sun had given up on life completely. And the worst part, the fruits wouldn't ripen and the wine tasted like sour grapes. Nothing ruins a civilization faster than bad wine, am I right? This wasn't just some metaphorical dark cloud. Researchers later found evidence of a massive volcanic eruption that basically created Seattle-like weather worldwide, minus the hipsters and coffee shops, spreading ash and destruction on a global scale. So the year 536 gets its first gold star for turning Earth into a volcanic ash snow globe. Now, as any plant would tell you if they could talk, sunlight is kind of a big deal for growing. So when the sun decided to ghost the planet for a year, crops worldwide basically said nope, and failed spectacularly. It wasn't just that plants were missing their tanning sessions, it was freezing. Earth's temperature dropped between 1.6 and 2.5 degrees Celsius. For Americans thinking, that doesn't sound so bad, that's 34.88 to 36.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and yes, that's enough to kill your avocado toast dreams for decades. Crop failures were reported everywhere, including Ireland, which suffered through what they poetically called bread failure. Not the Great Hunger or the Famine of Doom, just bread failure, because sometimes simplicity captures the true essence of we're all going to starve. But wait, there's more. A dusty veil covering the sun wasn't the only party favor in this year from hell. There was also a plague or two waiting to pounce on everyone's vitamin D-deprived immune systems. This plague was an equal opportunity killer. It swept through from peasants all the way to the imperial palace. The symptoms started with a cute little hand sore that progressed until you couldn't walk. Your leg swelled up like a balloon. And then, drumroll please, the buboes burst and released pus. If this happened today, we'd definitely have a reality TV show called Dr. Bubo's Pus Buster competing for worst entertainment ever. As the plague made its rounds in Constantinople, the city developed a distinctive eau de corpse, with dead bodies being tossed into the sea like yesterday's leftovers, only to bob back up later like the world's most morbid rubber ducks. Burial planning wasn't exactly a priority. It was more of a bring out your dead, I'm not dead yet, yes you are, Monty Python situation. Emperor Justinian, in his infinite wisdom, ordered the bodies removed from the city. Unfortunately, this brilliant plan just exposed more healthy people to the disease, as they played the world's deadliest game of hot potato with plague-ridden corpses. But hey, at least Justinian got a plague named after him. The Plague of Justinian? That's immortality for you. Less exciting for the estimated 50 million people who died from it, though. Meanwhile, over in China, the climate was going absolutely bonkers, doing totally normal things like raining dust you could scoop up by the handful. The Nanxi, a 6th century chronicle, reported yellow ash falling from the sky like the world's worst confetti. They called this bizarre weather wei, dust, displaying the kind of creative naming that makes bread failure seem poetic. But China was just getting started with its weather weirdness. The chronicles of the southern dynasties reported frost in midsummer and snow in August. The crops, like a Southern California girl suddenly transported to Chicago in January, were completely unprepared for this cold snap and died dramatically. This led to a 2-year famine that killed about 70 to 80% of the population in some cities. Just a minor inconvenience, really. Scientists digging in the ice sheets of Iceland and Greenland found evidence of a major volcanic tantrum around 536. Volcanic eruptions in Iceland in 540 and 547 thrust people into the literal Dark Ages, with ash blocking out the shiny hot sun thing that 6th century folks were just getting used to having around. Some scholars suggest a volcano in El Salvador also joined the eruption party around 535 or 536, while others point to North America as another contributor to the global ash cloud. Together, these volcanoes kicked off what was adorably named the Late Antique Little Ice Age. Don't let the cute name fool you. This little ice age cooled the planet for at least a decade and killed crops and people through starvation and disease. Well, at least the exploding volcanoes were having a blast. By the 6th century, the Romans had moved east to Constantinople, and Emperor Justinian was trying to recapture the empire's glory days. Much like that guy who peaked in high school and still wears his Letterman jacket at age 30, while some of Justinian's generals, especially our friend Belisarius, had success fighting against Goths, Vandals, and other groups with intimidating names, Justinian himself couldn't match their achievements due to those pesky uprisings and imperial instability, always getting in the way of world domination. The Byzantine Empire never fully recovered from the disease and famine sparked by the events of 536, losing between 35 to 55% of their population by 541. Once the bubonic plague moved in, it did what plagues do best, killed depressingly high percentages of entire populations. Historians believe plague-infested rats hitched rides on military transports during Justinian's Make Rome Great Again campaign, which clearly backfired spectacularly. The horribleness of 536 didn't discriminate geographically. The Mochi civilization of Peru certainly wouldn't put 536 on their highlight reel either. These folks were skilled fishermen and irrigation system engineers, with agricultural talents that were their economic backbone. But the 6th century weather had other plans, with an unusually strong El Niño warming the waters and decimating the fish supply. The freak weather also caused flooding that destroyed their irrigation systems and their ability to grow food. Talk about a bad year for everyone's dinner plans. Fast forward to modern times, when Harvard historian Michael McCormick and his scholarly squad, probably tired of hearing people complain about minor inconveniences, decided to science their way to answering the question, what was the worst year to be alive? Initially, they weren't even trying to solve this debate. They were studying metal usage, coinage, and 7th century monetary systems, riveting stuff that probably made them wonder if they were living in the worst year themselves. Their findings included volcanic fragments from an Icelandic volcano in ice core samples from Swiss glaciers dating back to, you guessed it, 536, confirming the volcanic event that plunged the northern hemisphere into unprecedented darkness and global catastrophe. But hey, in 1998, both Armageddon and Deep Impact were released, forcing people to choose between 2 asteroid movies. Tough competition. Dendrochronologists, people who study tree rings because that's apparently a real job and not something made up, noticed disturbing patterns in Icelandic trees. The rings showed a period of slowed growth, suggesting a significant cool down around the middle of the 6th century. This evidence, combined with ice core samples discovered in 2018, helped date the catastrophic event that temporarily ruined Earth to the year 536. But don't worry, this research story has a happy ending. While investigating, our Harvard friends discovered when things started looking up. They found lead reappearing in ice core samples, indicating people were producing silver again for money. Capitalism, nature's way of saying things are getting better. Experts argued that more silver meant more coins, which meant a thriving economy. The moral of the story, no matter how bad things get, they'll almost always improve, almost always. So what do you think? Would you hop in a time machine for the ultimate game of Survivor 536 edition? Just remember to pack sunscreen, just kidding, you won't need it, plague repellent, not a real thing, and maybe some non-sour grapes. The odds wouldn't be in your favor, but hey, at least you'd have a legitimate claim to having experienced the actual worst year ever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into royal burial secrets, hit that like button and subscribe in Weird History from World Channel for more historical mysteries. And let us know in the comments you find the history the most surprising. Until next time, keep it weird, history lovers.